so that you guys could come together and both serve Josh, because you both have the same intent.
Tony Robbins built an empire by teaching millions how to rise, succeed, and take control of their lives. He's coached names like President Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, and Serena Williams. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the battles waiting behind the curtain. Over the years, he has faced serious health issues, a misconduct controversy that nearly upended his reputation, and growing concerns about the way his business operates. But the latest chapter is the one no one saw coming, and things are not looking good for him at all. The rise of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins built an empire on the promise of transformation. For more than 4 decades, he stood on stages across the world, convincing millions that success, fulfillment, and inner strength were within reach. His voice, his presence, and his relentless energy turned him into the face of modern motivational speaking. He became a global symbol of personal power, a man who claimed to turn pain into purpose. But behind that rise is a story far more complicated. And today, things aren't looking good for him. The details that have surfaced in recent years are deeply disturbing, and they reveal a life far different from the image he spent years perfecting. Anthony J. Mahavoric, the man the world would later know as Tony Robbins, was born on February 29, 1960, in North Hollywood, California. His childhood had none of the security or comfort he would later teach others to build. His parents divorced when he was 7, and after that, a long line of stepfathers came and went. Stability was something his family never really had. Poverty shaped nearly every part of their lives. At one point, his family didn't even have a place to stay, and food insecurity was normal. These were the years when he learned how quickly life could fall apart and how hard a person had to fight just to get through the day. Inside the home, things were even more chaotic. His mother struggled deeply with substance abuse, and her behavior often turned violent. Robbins later described moments when her volatility made it impossible to feel safe. By the time he was a teenager, the tension had escalated to such an extreme that he made the decision to leave home at 17, walking out without any guarantee of what would come next. He never returned, and the break marked the beginning of the self-reliance he became famous for preaching. During those same years, he also faced a rare pituitary tumor that went undiagnosed for a long time. It triggered a dramatic growth spurt, nearly 10 inches in a short period, leaving him with chronic pain, fatigue, and a sense that his body was changing faster than he could understand. The sudden height contributed to the commanding physical presence he carried on stage, but it came from a condition he spent years trying to manage. After leaving home, he worked as a janitor, earning $40 a week, barely enough for food or rent. But even then, he believed something bigger was possible. When he heard that a motivational speaker named Jim Rohn was hosting a seminar, he took a risk and spent almost an entire week's pay to attend. That decision changed everything. Rohn's message resonated with him in a way nothing else had. Robbins introduced himself afterward, and that moment became the start of a mentorship that shaped the rest of his career. Working for Rohn gave him access to the world he would eventually dominate. Robbins studied the techniques, the structure of the talks, and the psychology behind motivation. But he didn't simply copy Rohn. He built something louder, faster, and more intense. By his early 20s, he was running his own seminars, using a blend of psychology, physical engagement, and neuro-linguistic programming to create an atmosphere unlike anything audiences had seen before. But the breakthrough that pushed him into mainstream recognition came in the late 1980s when his personal power infomercials began airing nationwide. His voice and message filled living rooms across America at all hours of the night. Those infomercials turned him into a household name and launched him into the same cultural space as television personalities and best-selling authors. He wrote Unlimited Power in 1986 and Awaken the Giant Within in 1991, books that became global bestsellers and introduced millions to his methods. From there, his influence kept expanding. He organized seminars that attracted thousands of attendees, and his coaching reached celebrities, athletes, CEOs, and even world leaders. President Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, and Serena Williams all sought his guidance at one point. Behind the scenes, Robbins was building a business empire that stretched far beyond motivational speaking. He created and partnered with more than 50 companies, generating billions of dollars in revenue. His name became associated with success, achievement, and relentless drive. At the same time, he invested heavily in philanthropy. Through the Tony Robbins Foundation, he funded youth programs, homelessness outreach, and prison initiatives. He donated millions of meals through Feeding America and often spoke about how his childhood fueled the desire to help families facing poverty. The media embraced him. Interviews, talk shows, podcasts, and the 2016 documentary, Tony Robbins, I Am Not Your Guru, expanded his reach even further. To millions, he wasn't just a speaker, he was the ultimate symbol of personal transformation. From the outside, it looked like Tony Robbins had built a life without cracks. But behind the stage lights and success stories were hidden struggles, multiple controversies, and a series of allegations that would one day threaten everything he built. The hidden struggles of Tony Robbins. One of the major challenges Tony Robbins has had to deal with is his physical health. His seminars were famous for their volume, pace, and non-stop delivery. He spent hours shouting across arenas, leading thousands through emotional breakthroughs, interventions, and high-energy exercises. Unfortunately, after years of this, the strain became impossible to ignore. He began experiencing significant vocal fatigue, and doctors warned him to slow down. He eventually had to adjust his speaking methods, incorporate breaks, and rely more heavily on recovery routines just to get through the schedule he had created for himself. But the physical pressure didn't stop there. His lifestyle revolved around constant travel, jumping from continent to continent in a cycle that rarely allowed rest. Robbins once admitted that burnout became a serious issue. His body simply couldn't keep up with the relentless pace anymore. By the time he reached middle age, he was dealing with injuries and chronic fatigue. One of the most serious issues was his spinal deterioration, which caused severe pain and required continuous medical intervention. Alongside the physical strain were emotional battles that rarely surfaced in public. In interviews with figures like Theo Von, Robbins openly admitted he has spent much of his life wrestling with feelings of unworthiness. Despite the confidence he projected on stage, he often struggled with emotional attachment and the pressure to be strong for everyone else. He said that fear and loss were constant motivators throughout his early life, but those same emotions sometimes resurfaced in ways he didn't expect. Robbins has also spoken about the isolation that comes with being at the top. When millions see you as their guide, it becomes difficult to confide in others without feeling judged or misunderstood. Robbins has acknowledged that success, while rewarding, can also feel lonely. The higher he climbed, the fewer people he felt he could speak to honestly about the weight he carried. One of the most dangerous health episodes he faced came from something he believed was beneficial. For years, Robbins consumed large amounts of swordfish and tuna, thinking he was making healthy choices. He didn't know those fish contained some of the highest mercury levels in the food chain. Eventually, the accumulation reached a life-threatening point. His blood mercury level tested at 123 micrograms per liter, a concentration so high that doctors warned him it could have led to severe neurological damage. The symptoms quietly crept in: fatigue, difficulty thinking clearly, and a decline in overall well-being. Robbins later said he had no idea the source of the problem until testing revealed the toxicity. Once diagnosed, he began an intensive detox program using advanced nutraceuticals and detox protocols to bring the levels down. The process was long, difficult, and frightening, but he recovered and afterward encouraged others to include heavy metal testing in their routine medical checkups. All of these struggles were difficult enough on their own, but they weren't the only part of his life weighing him down. Behind the scenes, Robbins faced turmoil inside his relationships. He built a global brand, teaching people how to repair relationships, strengthen communication, and build emotional connection. But the reality of his own love life was far more complicated. Behind the public image of confidence and certainty, his relationships carried tension, controversy, and decisions that shaped his reputation in ways he never anticipated. Turbulent love life. Tony Robbins' first marriage began in 1984 when he met Becky Jenkins at one of his seminars. She was drawn to his intensity and the sense of purpose he carried even at a young age, and he stepped into her life quickly. But the marriage came with a responsibility few people his age were prepared for. Becky had 3 children from previous marriages, and Robbins adopted them as his own. Overnight, he went from a young motivational speaker still building his identity to a full-time father of 3 in a blended family that required constant emotional and financial support. Around that same period, another major event added pressure to his personal life. Robbins fathered a child, Jirek Robbins, with former girlfriend Liz Acosta. The relationship happened before his marriage to Becky, but the birth of a biological child outside the marriage placed strain on the foundation they were trying to build. He accepted responsibility and became an active part of his son's life, but balancing the needs of a blended household with the new responsibilities of fatherhood was more difficult than he expected. The tension grew heavier as Robbins' career accelerated. His schedule soon filled with non-stop travel, long seminar days, and a growing business empire. The demands that built his brand also created distance at home. While Robbins rarely speaks publicly about the details of his first marriage, people close to the family have said the pressure of his expanding career and the complexity of the blended household created fractures that were hard to repair. After 14 years, the marriage ended in 1998, quietly but decisively. 3 years later, Robbins married Sage Robbins, born Bonnie Robbins. They first met at one of his events, and Sage quickly became a central presence in his life. She was warm, confident, and deeply invested in his work. But the beginning of their relationship wasn't smooth, because Sage's former husband, John Lynch, publicly accused Robbins of breaking up their marriage. As a matter of fact, Lynch filed a lawsuit and openly blamed Robbins for the collapse of their relationship. Robbins denied the accusations, insisting Sage and Lynch had already separated long before he entered the picture. Still, the controversy drew significant media attention, and for a man whose public brand centered on ethical leadership and integrity, the headlines created a cloud he struggled to shake. Despite the public scrutiny, Robbins and Sage moved forward. They tied the knot in 2001, and Sage gradually became a visible part of his professional world. She appeared with him at seminars, participated in relationship interventions, and often stood beside him during the most emotionally charged moments of his live events. For many fans, she represented the compassionate counterpart to Robbins' intensity, someone who balanced his forceful presence with calm grounding. The marriage has endured far longer than his first, but it didn't erase the controversies surrounding Robbins' personal life. Public scrutiny also intensified because his career centered so heavily on advising others about emotional connection. Every rumor, every lawsuit, every story carried an extra punch because it clashed with the message he delivered on stage. And through it all, Robbins has maintained that love is a lifelong learning process, and that his marriage to Sage represented the partnership he had always hoped to build. She remains a constant presence at his events, appearing beside him during the most significant moments of his career, both publicly and behind the scenes. But the turbulence in Robbins' relationships was only the beginning. In 2019, his reputation took a severe hit when a wave of allegations emerged, painting a picture that sharply contrasted with the polished image he had built for decades. The disturbing misconduct allegations. Tony Robbins has been accused of exhibiting inappropriate conduct toward women, with multiple accusers alleging that Robbins crossed physical and professional boundaries. Several women said he made unwanted advances, acted in ways they considered inappropriate, or behaved in a manner that made them uncomfortable. Some even described moments where Robbins allegedly exposed himself or acted in a way they felt was unprofessional in a seminar or work-related setting. These accounts focused on encounters stretching across the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s, during the years when his career was rapidly expanding. The first major wave of public allegations came in May 2019, when 4 women, 3 former followers, and 1 former personal assistant described a pattern of behavior they believed showed inappropriate attention or boundary issues. Their accounts became part of a broader investigation that raised questions about how Robbins interacted with both staff and event attendees. As the story unfolded, more women came forward, bringing the total number of accusers to 9. Each had their own experience, but the overall narrative suggested a troubling pattern of conduct behind the scenes of his self-help empire. Some of the most widely discussed reports involved Robbins' behavior at his own seminars, where power imbalance was a serious concern. These events often placed him in direct contact with vulnerable individuals seeking emotional help. Investigative reports, leaked recordings, and internal documents described moments when Robbins allegedly used aggressive language toward attendees, including individuals who disclosed past trauma. Critics argued that these interactions were inappropriate and lacked the sensitivity necessary in such a setting. One of the most controversial findings involved instances where Robbins allegedly berated victims of maltreatment during interventions, questioning their decisions or challenging their emotional responses. Supporters claimed this was part of Robbins' tough love method, while critics insisted that the approach was harmful and potentially re-traumatizing. But the investigative reporting did not only focus on his interactions with attendees. Former staff members claimed Robbins sometimes blurred professional boundaries or behaved in ways they viewed as inappropriate. Some described an environment where his status made it difficult for employees to voice concerns or challenge certain behaviors. Robbins and his legal team responded forcefully. They issued categorical denials, calling the allegations false, distorted, and agenda-driven. His attorneys argued that the reporting misrepresented events, relied on unreliable sources, and selectively edited documents to create a misleading narrative. Robbins himself released public statements rejecting the claims, insisting he had never behaved in a way that violated professional or personal boundaries. He said the picture being painted of him was inaccurate and deeply unfair. Despite his rebuttals, the allegations changed the public conversation around him. Major news outlets covered the story extensively, shifting his image from motivational icon to embattled figure facing serious questions. The narrative surrounding Robbins had always been one of transformation, strength, and emotional leadership. Suddenly, that story was overshadowed by controversy. The situation intensified further when remarks Robbins made about the #MeToo movement resurfaced. During one of his events, he suggested that some women use the movement to gain significance, a comment that sparked immediate backlash. Critics argued that his words dismissed the experiences of survivors and minimized the importance of the movement. After the criticism mounted, Robbins apologized and clarified his position, acknowledging that his phrasing had been insensitive. Still, the damage was done, and the incident added another layer to the growing public scrutiny. By mid-2019, the allegations and controversies had dramatically altered the course of his public reputation. The man who once spoke confidently about overcoming fear and embracing truth was now facing questions about his own conduct and the culture surrounding his events. Whether people believed the allegations or accepted his denials, the impact was undeniable. Companies re-evaluated partnerships, journalists continued investigating, and the public began viewing his work through a different lens. For Robbins, this marked a turning point. His empire, once celebrated as a model of personal development, now faced some of the harshest criticism in its history. And while the allegations were serious enough on their own, they also opened the door to another controversy. This time, it was centered around his business practices, corporate interests, and the machinery behind his billion-dollar self-help brand. Business empire criticisms. As Tony Robbins' business grew into a worldwide empire, more people began taking a closer look at how his events operated. The larger his brand became, the more questions were raised about the style, structure, and pressure inside his seminars. A major point of concern has always been Robbins' high-intensity coaching style. His events are loud, emotional, and fast-moving. He calls people on stage, pushes them through confrontational exercises, and encourages public breakthroughs in front of thousands. critics argue it can be overwhelming, especially for people dealing with serious emotional struggles. They believe the pace moves too quickly for anyone to fully understand what they're being pushed into. Some of the activities have also raised questions about safety. Robbins often includes exercises like firewalking or high-energy physical movements. While many participants complete them without problems, incidents have happened over the years that spark debate about how well everyone is prepared beforehand. First-time attendees, in particular, might not realize how intense these activities can get. Another criticism centers on the pressure inside the room. Robbins uses loud music, crowd responses, and group participation to build momentum. Some critics say this can make it hard for people to slow down, think clearly, or say no. When thousands of people are shouting affirmations together, it creates a strong pull to follow along. And when financial decisions are encouraged during these emotional highs, it raises concerns about whether participants are making choices calmly or simply caught up in the moment. This ties into the long-standing issue of upselling at events. Many attendees describe Robbins' seminars as inspiring, but they also note the constant push toward buying higher-priced programs, coaching packages, or VIP retreats. Some say they felt sold to during emotional moments, which made them uncomfortable. There have also been complaints about what happens after people buy in. Robbins doesn't personally run most follow-up programs. Many are handled by associate coaches or outside partners. Some participants say these experiences don't match the quality or promises they heard from Robbins himself, leading to frustration and claims that the brand relies more on his name than consistent service. His critics also argue that pricing and refund rules for certain programs aren't always clear. The cost of attending multiple events can quietly build into the tens of thousands, something people don't always realize until they're deep in the system. Many critics believe this feels like a ladder, where each level requires another expensive step. Robbins has also been accused of focusing more on marketing than long-term results. Some say the company relies heavily on Robbins' star power, celebrity connections, and the hype surrounding big events, while offering limited evidence about the effectiveness of certain techniques. Concerns have also been raised about Robbins' corporate culture, especially after a 2020 lawsuit from a sales executive dealing with health issues drew attention to how the company responded when staff asked for accommodations. Another criticism that grew louder over time was the claim that Robbins' events had a cult-like energy. He remains the center of every seminar, and everything, from the chanting to the intervention style, revolves around him. Some people love that sense of unity. Others say it creates dependency, where attendees rely more on Robbins' authority than their own judgment. The insider terms, shared rituals, and group identity can build strong community, but critics worry they make people less willing to question him or seek outside support. Add in the celebrity endorsements, and many argue the entire system reinforces itself with hype rather than proof. While this criticism was severe, the backlash that came during the pandemic was on a different level. His comments about the pandemic and vaccines sparked one of the biggest public disputes of his career and pushed him into a national conversation he wasn't prepared for. The vaccine controversy. In 2021, while speaking at the Funnel Hacking Live conference in Orlando, Robbins made remarks that many described as mocking the seriousness of the pandemic. He questioned how dangerous the virus truly was and raised doubts about vaccine effectiveness. Clips of the event spread online, and critics said his comments gave fuel to anti-vaxxers. Coming from someone with a massive following, the statements landed hard. Robbins wasn't just another speaker or influencer, he was someone thousands looked to for guidance. This wasn't the first time he stepped into the pandemic discussion. In 2020, Robbins released a podcast episode that featured several doctors and even a Nobel Prize winner. Robbins presented it as offering the science you aren't hearing on TV. His goal, according to him, was to question mainstream narratives. But critics argued that framing it this way risked amplifying uncertainty, especially at a time when millions were searching for reliable information. Throughout the pandemic, Robbins made comments suggesting that official messaging around masks, vaccines, and the severity of the problem was incomplete or misleading. He positioned himself as someone uncovering truths others weren't willing to discuss. And while some believed he was encouraging independent thinking, critics accused him of feeding doubt during a global crisis. The response from media outlets was swift. Robbins was accused of spreading misinformation and relying on misleading statistics. Headlines painted a picture of a motivational speaker stepping far outside his field and creating confusion among his audience. Public health experts also expressed concern, saying Robbins' words could influence people to distrust vaccines or question protective measures. But the backlash didn't hit only his public image, it affected how people viewed his overall judgment. Many saw his remarks as part of a larger pattern. It seemed like Robbins often spoke too casually about sensitive issues that required care and accuracy. What made the situation more complicated was the influence Robbins holds. His events draw thousands. His books reach millions. He has a loyal following built over decades. Critics worried that people struggling with fear or uncertainty might take his comments as guidance and make decisions that weren't based on evidence. By the time the backlash reached its peak, Robbins' reputation had taken a noticeable hit. For the first time, people openly questioned whether he understood the responsibility that came with his platform. The controversy stayed in the public spotlight longer than he expected, reinforcing the idea that his influence could be risky when he stepped into areas outside his expertise. And just as the pandemic criticism began to settle, Robbins found himself facing another set of problems that had nothing to do with speeches or public health. Recent legal problems. Tony Robbins' most recent conflict began in 2025 when Robbins' companies filed a major lawsuit against the creators of Yes Chat AI. According to the complaint, the company had developed at least 11 AI chatbots that copied Robbins' voice, style, and recognizable coaching language without permission. Some of the bots were marketed under names like Talk to Tony Robbins, Ask Tony Anything, and Tony Robbins GPT. They were promoted as digital versions of Robbins' coaching and sold through monthly subscription models. Robbins' team described it as nothing less than a digital heist of his identity. The lawsuit claimed that his name, likeness, image, and intellectual property were used to build automated products that looked and sounded like him but had no connection to him. The suit seeks $10 million in damages, but the significance goes beyond money. Lawyers and industry experts say the case could become a landmark for how digital identity is protected. In an era where AI can imitate anyone's voice, mannerisms, and communication style. But the AI case isn't the only legal issue surrounding his organization. Robbins' company also became the target of a privacy lawsuit filed in California's Superior Court. The complaint centers on alleged violations of the California Invasion of Privacy Act. According to the plaintiffs, Robbins' company secretly monitored communications from people who used certain features on their website. They claim that user interactions, such as messages sent through contact forms or chat tools, were recorded or tracked without consent. The lawsuit argues that this kind of monitoring crosses the line into illegal wiretapping under California law. It raises concerns about how the company handles user data, what information was collected, and whether visitors were ever properly informed. The case is still ongoing, but the potential consequences for Robbins and his brand are serious. A ruling against his organization could lead to major financial penalties, changes in how the company operates online, and further damage to a reputation already shaken by years of controversy. To make matters worse, these legal troubles are arriving at a time when Robbins is already facing increased scrutiny from earlier misconduct allegations, business criticisms, and backlash from his pandemic remarks. Each new issue adds another layer to the challenges surrounding his empire, making it clear that the problems he faces now are not limited to the stage or the seminar room. They reach into technology, consumer protection, and the future of public identity itself. What do you think about the way Tony Robbins runs his business? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.